going on in the U.S. And here's, like I said before, gone are the days when New Zealand and Australia are the only representation of our people. We have traveled. We have not just migrated, we've built homes, we've become part of the fiber of many, many different parts of societies around the world. One of them being the U.S. And I say this because in America, you've got, let's look at the Samoans, for instance. You've got all types of Samoans from the two Samoans, and then you've got our brothers and sisters from the Micronesian states, and then, the Melanesian represent. So we're all there. And then plus the other islands like the Caribbeans and that lot. So all of the islanders, we make up a very good sizable population in the US. So it is for them that we are always looking, how are our people doing? Now, if you have been keeping tab on the news lately, you can't avoid it. Our next guest and I, we would joke online that if you were to take away the news of America, that pretty much go all the 35% revenue for New Zealand Herald and every other newspaper. Joining me this morning to try to understand it all is Mr. Taliaoa John Loau. He is the current, he wears many hats. So he's the current chairman of the Samoa Business Network. He is a partner member of the Samoa Chamber of Commerce. He's the executive member of the Pacific Business Network. He's a lead organizer with Northwest Auckland Business Network and was recently appointed the executive to the New Zealand Samoa Trade Investment Commission. And prior to that, prior to coming back to Aotearoa, he spent 10 years in international experience developing pathway to military law enforcement and also through police training programs in the U.S. A serial New Zealand entrepreneur with business startups. We thought we'd just have a chat, and for that, let's say good morning and thank you for waking up early this morning. Talofa lava, and welcome to the show, Talio.
Aloha lava, good morning. Thank you for having me. Thanks for the introduction.
Well, look, man, if I were to really explain everything about you, I think we'll need a podcast and another show. But look, we are speaking this morning, of course, because yesterday in American time, a historical moment happened. Now, not only did he become the third
Hmm.
American sitting president to be impeached, but then he took one bitter. He became the only one to be impeached twice. Let's take a look at America leading up to this moment, starting from that famous speech that everybody's been referencing as the inciting that started all of this. What are you
Hmm.
hearing from your people in the ground, brother?
So, from a law enforcement perspective, I guess when you're looking at um, I guess traditionally what we understand is that they go out and investigate, determine the charges before the DA or the prosecutors decide, does the evidence match up and stack up to the charges that the police have decided to arrest you on. So it's different for political offices. So the president's been impeached by the House of Representatives, saying that based on the language that he's used, that he it qualifies to impeach him mainly for insurrection because they're obviously looking to limit his ability to hold office. So that's so that's a hard one. So you've got the political establishment trying to determine whether or not that meets the threshold, but from a legal perspective, for people who were on the ground that were responsible for storming the Capitol building, you have to determine are they insurrectionists or are they trespassers, and trying to find a legal framework and the right charges to charge these individuals for. It's a tough one because there's the emotion going on about people calling them domestic terrorists, insurrectionists, and it's a rebellion, so they should be charged to the harshest part of America's legal standard. But then you have people on the ground who are actually responsible for when they are arresting them to determining what the actual charges are. And I'm going to I find that that's going to be an interesting conversation after the political things die off after the 20th.
We're not going to get into the social impact and the potential if, because we know that's a whole nother rabbit hole for America. What I'm talking about, if everyone's saying if the majority of the protesters were not white, could things have turned out differently? Because I think that'll open up a whole nother conversation. But looking at impeachment, right? Here's the thing: other than President Andrew Johnson, he was the first one to be impeached in 1868, and he did it so because he had an argument with the House, fired the secretary. I mean, if you compare what he got impeached for to let's say what happened to Trump. They should have kept that guy in office, but that's what extreme was in 1868, and then the famous one in 1998 where we heard the line, "I did not have a sexual relationship with that woman." Right? Even that,
That's
when you look at it, it was more behavioral. We got
Yes.
rid of
Yeah.
David Clark in New Zealand. We stood him down because he was telling everyone else to please stay at home, but he was going surfing, and we brought him back.
Mm.
I would equate that to kind of what Bill Clinton behavior. Now you've got that.
Right.
My friend over here, Donald Trump. Now he got impeached once. How come nothing
Mm.
happened to him then?
Yeah. So what happens is that once impeachment basically just means that the House has decided that these that U.S. President of the United States are guilty on these particular charges, and it's usually traditionally after an investigation is completed, committees have met, witnesses have been called, and all the evidence is considered, and then every single member of the House reports to the floor and then airs their vote. After then you're formally impeached, or what we would traditionally know in the legal system that you've been formally charged. So after that, it goes to court, like any other judicial system. Now, in the United States, that system that is responsible for the judicial court process is the U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice, who presides over the Senate at that point. So the Senate at the last impeachment decided that he didn't meet that level of that the House has impeached him for, and so there was no conviction. But that's based on party lines. If you look at the vote out of the U.S. Senate, so basically, Republicans had control of the Senate. They voted not to convict the president of the United States, so he can't be removed from office at that stage. So, and here we are again repeating the same process.
Well, the only difference between the first impeachment and this one, now you've got quite a few people from the same party, who the Republicans who actually crossed over the other line and voted to impeach him. I mean, we're looking at a potential. I feel like, in a way, if you were to look at our national party at the moment, how it's going through an
Mm.
image problem, a rebranding, it's trying to find itself. I feel like the Republican Party, whatever it's going to do from here on in, it's probably going to look at rewriting some laws, going to go through a little image rebranding, because now you're seeing a split of the House. I mean, yes, they still got the power of the floor, but it's you never would have thought in the first impeachment, the second one, anybody would cross that line and vote against President
Mm.
Trump. Are they going to go all the way this time, though? Because now we're 5 days away from ushering in good old Papa Tati Tachi, President-elect Joe Biden.
Say it's a Papa Joe. Yeah, it's going to be quite interesting. So the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell for the Republican Party, he's already indicated that that the particular case that they'll have to take up won't happen until after Joe Biden is going to be held in office. And I think the intentional motivation was to get this done, get it over with, close this chapter, move on with the new president. But we can see that Trump will still be a talking point into Joe Biden's presidential term early on, and so that's going to be a problem because that just sucks the life out of Joe Biden's ability to just get the country focused and moving things forward. But I think the Senate has always been the big boy and big girl house. That they consider things a little more in depth before the House of Representatives. And the House of Representatives generally a little more loose and active than the Senate. So I'm not sure if the Senate will sit though and really kind of when they look at this whole thing, they'll have the time to kind of determine is the evidence there? Should we convict? And I think there is no excuse for the Senate to not spend the time to determine whether or not the president meets the threshold. The issue is primarily, I guess, moving forward, is that the legal precedent that this sets for other presidents moving forward as well. So it's a bit different. That Trump is probably more bombastic and he's more confrontational than previous presidents. But should different political majorities of the House and the Senate decide that they don't like a sitting president, then is it that easy to remove one?
If you are someone sitting outside of America and you're looking at the politics going on at the
Mm.
moment, you're looking at the what they call the leader of the free world, and you are it's like you're watching someone having a meltdown that you were depending on for various different things. Because I know in America anyway, the business will go
Mm.
on because at the end of the day, the president can be the president. You still got the Tea Party doing its thing. The secret societies will continue to grow that are really in the underbelly, underground of America. What can one make of the world politics at the moment just by looking at the police of the world going through a moment like such?
Yeah, so our people are in the various different social economic groups, from the high end all the way through middle and low end. From a personal side, just listening to the groups that I'm in and with my family establishment in the United States, we're traditionally conservative people, so we lean towards the Republican Party anyway for the social conservative aspect of things. Um, so that's the one thing, and so there's and then I think that what we've seen in general, we've been very uncomfortable with seeing what's in general. We're quite loyal people at that stage as well. So, though many of our family members condemn the actions that took place, at the Capitol, we're not prepared to move away from the Republican Party either. And highlighted earlier about the image issues of the Republican Party. I've been a member of the Republican Party and a supporter since the early '90s. Um, as a child, before I actually understood, but as growing up as a young man and as an adult, I'm firmly more rooted, on the GOP side. But I've always known that the GOP's needed a fresh makeover. Probably like you highlighted before, very similar to some of the issues raised during our elections here in New Zealand. That maybe they could use a bit of a tan, a little more, especially summer times here. So they should probably work on their tan a bit.
Some tan and some eat, pray, love. Hey, look, before I let you go, man, Papa Joe, I feel like the first 2 years is going to be eaten up by trying to put Trump into his crib. And then there are rumors saying, I've been talking to my cousins and everyone saying, hey, man, we've got a feeling that after 2 years, they're probably going to let him go and then put forward Kamala. Like, that's the plan. Because, by after 2 years,
Yeah,
Joe will be too old, man. No one's going to keep believing that little jot run that he does when he runs up to the pulpit. So I think slowly move. What do you think about Joe? Is he gonna last the distance, or is it gonna be a typical American environment where the best is yet to come?
yeah, I think the best is yet to come. The thing about New Zealand and the US that differs is that we don't necessarily hold on to your age factor. We really value people's experience and their age. And if they can keep working, they do. So it's Senator Feinstein for California. She technically should retire, but the woman is nearing, I think, her in her 90s, and she's still running for office. So, as a senator again. And Joe Biden, he's in his 80s, and he's got valuable experience in the beltway, in the beltway, well respected internationally, and he might be that, I guess, Papa Joe personality we need. Now, whether or not he continues on and then leaves partway through the term that Kamala Harris steps in then and becomes president, hey, look, that'll be interesting. If it sometimes, I think, if that's what it takes to get a woman in office and a woman of color in office, in order to give them a solid footing to campaign in the next cycle. Hey, it's politics. That's just the way it goes. But but that's what politics is. It's a contest of ideas. But civility has disappeared, and so like you mentioned earlier, you got the little secret societies, you got splinter groups, and you got all these other factions. And the danger is making sure that if they are not controlled immediately or soon, then their voices could be heard quite loudly. When we saw that at the Capitol building of them storming the Congress on that day last week.
And mark my words, given the black community's reaction to Kamala Harris, I think the day Kamala Harris becomes president, she will not last into a second term. Taliaoa John Loau, thank you very much for joining me this morning, man. I know it's an early time, but appreciate your perspective and sharing what you're hearing from your families and friends in the U.S., man. Have a good one and blessed weekend. And Happy New Year's.
Yeah, happy New Year, and good luck to everyone, and thank you for
Cheers,
having
man.
me.
Thank you. Well,